Hi, I'm Dr. Sherry Pop with Weave Education. Welcome to Institutional Effectiveness Tips, where we'll share some short, practical tips to improve your assessment and accreditation work. Today, I'm going to talk about improving assessment targets. Let's face it, setting assessment targets often feels subjective and arbitrary. Keep in mind that all forms of grading and evaluation are subjective to some extent, but taking the time to create targets that are well thought out and realistic will help you get value from your assessment work. We'll start with a target that is often used in assessment plans. Students will achieve a score of at least 3 on the rubric. A few questions come to mind when we read this target. First, how many of the students are expected to achieve this standard? Second, why 3 and what does 3 signify? Third, is the whole rubric connected to the learning outcome or just specific traits or sections? First, we need to determine the number of students who should achieve the standard. It's tempting to say 100%. We all want all of our students to succeed. But setting such a high target will either be impossible to achieve or make us focus time and attention on outcomes that we are already achieving quite well. Instead, consider setting targets based on how essential the outcomes are for students to be successful. For an outcome focused on written communication skills, for instance, a very high percentage of students should be displaying at least a minimum level of competency. So our target becomes 85% of students will achieve 3 on the rubric. Additionally, you may have both a minimal level of competency as well as an aspirational target to help drive learning improvement. In this case, you may want to have 15% of students achieving at least a 4 on the rubric. Now we'll look at the comparison being made. There are several ways to determine what is adequate, including criterion referenced, norm referenced, and value added comparisons. Students will achieve a 3 as a criterion referenced comparison. The criterion and description of what is appropriate or good enough is determined ahead of time. Appropriateness may be established either in your local context by experts in the discipline, like your highly qualified faculty, or by an external source, like your program's accreditor. In our example, achieving at least a 3 on a 5-point scale may have been determined as the acceptable level of achievement by a cross-section of faculty experts who had input into the design of the assessments and the rubric being used to measure this outcome. So our target is now 85% of students will achieve 3 out of 5 on the local rubric. Finally, we might legitimately ask if the learning outcome is broad enough to apply to the whole rubric or if certain traits are the focus of this outcome, measure, and target pair. If not, identify the rubric sections that will be aggregated and reported for this target. Our final target then is 85% of students will achieve a 3 out of 5 or above on the written expression portions of the local rubric. Remember, creating meaningful targets takes time. Consider the number of students who should achieve the target, determine the right comparison, and think about how your assessment tool aligns with the outcome. Doing this work ahead of time will help you feel more confident and explain to other stakeholders how and why the target is appropriate. Thanks for joining me for Institutional Effectiveness Tips. We'll see you next time.
Created using Powtoon.